What happens if you have a purple flower? If you have, let's just stick with Mendel's pea plants. If you have a phenotype that is dominant, how do you know what the genotype is? Because a dominant phenotype isn't necessarily homozygous dominant, because you could also have it be heterozygous and it will still look purple. So how do you know if a genotype for a dominant phenotype is homozygous dominant or is heterozygous? You use something called a test cross. And what that is you cross with a homozygous recessive individual, and that's really important. So let's just take this as an example. If our, I'll make it up here, you cross it with homozygous recessive. So you get all heterozygotes. Okay, so if your original individual, your purple flower, if it was homozygous dominant, then when you cross it with a homozygous recessive individual, your results are 100% purple flower. Of course, you cannot do this with organisms that don't produce a lot of offspring in one generation. Like, for example, you could not do a test cross with a human because we only produce like one offspring at a time. So you would not be able to get any kind of ratio with the first filial generation. But let's say if the individual in question is heterozygous, then what would your results be? If you cross it with, again, a homozygous recessive individual, you would end up with a 50-50, wouldn't you? So you've got 50% purple and 50% white. So for organisms that produce lots of offspring or is very easy to have them reproduce, you can use a test cross if you have a dominant phenotype with an unknown, with an unknown genotype. You use a test cross and you look at the F1 generation. If the F1 generation is 100% dominant color, then you know that your original genotype is homozygous dominant. If your F1 generation is 50-50, then you know that your original genotype is heterozygous.